we tend to not look at children the same way we might look at an adult that we're trying to help. An adult we're trying to help, maybe we'll validate them. We'll say, hey, I get what you're talking about. I get you. There's something that children are missing very often with parents because parents don't want to shift into a friendship role. But a child needs a foundational structure that lets them know that they can come to you with anything. They can come to you with weird feelings. They can come to you with things they don't understand. They can come to you with anything. And you're not going to overreact. You're not going to be shocked. You're going to keep your head, heart, and feet all in the same spot. And you're going to be able to listen with the intent to understand. Hey, guys, it is Alison. I am the host of your show, Alison Answers Mission Awake. I cannot wait to sit down with you today and go over how we are going to crush the mediocrity in your life that has been plaguing our society since the beginning of time. I cannot wait to have a real deal conversation that includes intelligence, fun, excitement, and real actionable steps to make a real difference in the life that you're living now and making it into something you can be damn proud of and excited to live. Sit down, put on your damn seatbelt, and get ready for the ride of your life. Hey guys, how are you today? We're going to talk about resilience and mental health in children. In regard to children, we have to remember that they do not have, by the nature of their chronological stage, they do not have the evidence that they need to know that this too shall pass, that they can utilize a difficult situation, that they can be empowered by it, that they can learn from it, that they can grow from it. What we need to do as adults interacting with children is be able to understand that when we're relating to them. We need to be able to say to them, hey, you haven't experienced or known that you can come out of this situation, that you can feel better in this situation, that you can overcome this situation because you've never had that experience yet. Let me hold hope for you. Let me hold space for you so that you can see. And so one of the things I've done with children, even my own children, I've said, hey, you know what? I remember when I was little, and I remember that it was hard for me to go to sleep at night. But look at me now. I learned how to go to sleep at night, and now I sleep really, really well. I remember saying that to a little kid when I was babysitting. I think I was 12 years old. So what you want to remember is that we tend to not look at children the same way we might look at an adult that we're trying to help. An adult we're trying to help, maybe we'll validate them. We'll say, hey, I get what you're talking about. I get you. There's something that children are missing very often with parents because parents don't want to shift into a friendship role. But a child needs a foundational structure that lets them know that they can come to you with anything. They can come to you with weird feelings. They can come to you with things they don't understand. They can come to you with anything. And you're not going to overreact. You're not going to be shocked. You're going to keep your head, heart, and feet all in the same spot, and you're going to be able to listen with the intent to understand. I do this with all adults in marriage counseling. That's another thing that's super important. We need to learn how to come to a conversation without our own agenda. If someone really needs to hear us, one of the things about being a therapist is that I'm able to understand that because that is my role. So I can kind of switch into that mode. But think about that as a parent or as a spouse or as a good friend. We don't want to give advice. We don't want to tell people what's wrong with them or the reason that this is happening to them. Even if that is a necessity at some point, the initial conversation is really important, that you go where the person is. You meet that person in that darkness. One of the things that I have discovered by going through many, many different trials, different struggles, trauma throughout my life, I have not walked away from those things with my victim card. Believe me, there are times when I take that victim card out and I'm like, I'm a victim. I want you to feel sorry for me and cuddle me up on the couch and make me feel better. But in general, and if I do that, I'll say, hey, I'm taking my victim card out for a minute. I just want to tell you how much I feel like a victim, but let me put it back in my pocket and say, okay, I'm not a victim. What I am is a person who just experienced something that's been very difficult for me. And now I'm going to take that. I'm going to take that experience and I'm going to use the key of utilization. And I'm going to take that thing and I'm going to make it my bitch, basically. I'm going to take that struggle. I'm going to wrestle through it and I'm going to let it extract from me the things that need to be extracted. And I'm going to let it help me to grow into a better version of me, a better seeing things differently, having a different vantage point. These are very, very key principles in actually just managing life, being able to regulate our own emotions. One of the biggest signs of mental health is when we experience difficulty, is that then we are able, at that moment, we are able to say, okay, now what do I do with this? I have a choice. Am I going to react? The majority of the world is reacting to things all around them. And it is the worst form of health that you could ever have. It's what I call emotional drunkenness. Emotional sobriety is when something happens outside of myself, and then I don't go to that outside thing. I don't blame, I don't judge, I don't make a decision, I don't react. I'm not saying that I don't ever do that, but I'm saying the healthy way to go about doing it is to say, okay, what is it about that situation that is having such an impact on me? And let me look inward. And now I'm going to swoop all the way back to when I initially started this conversation on this podcast. And what I initially said to you guys is this, is that what do we do with children? How do we help children manage and emotionally regulate? One of the things that we must do is we need to teach them how to be emotionally sober, just like us. But when we go all the way back to the kids, what we would be doing is we're helping them to say, okay, now let's look inward. What are some of your options with a child? And then they'll say, I want to punch him in the face, or I want to wreck the room, or whatever it is. And instead of reacting, we can say, hey, okay, that's an option. How do you think that would go? Well, what would that look like in 3 hours from now? What would that look like without any reaction? Now the child has an opportunity, or the adolescent has the opportunity to process and maybe say some silly things, but we don't react to it and we don't fix it immediately. And then we want to remember as an adult, so I'm going back and forth with these parallels. As an adult, we have all this information stored inside of us because from 0 to approximately 7 years old, give or take, we are then in this theta brainwave. And during that period of time, we are being programmed. We're in a hypnotic state. So in that hypnotic state, what's happening is that the lovely experience of a child learning how to write, learning how to walk, all these wonderful things are happening. But at that same time, a lot of dysfunctional things are being peppered in. And those situations are also being peppered in with the child's perspective on it, their conclusion on it, the belief system that's being developed during that period of time that adults usually do not know is being developed. So if a child hears from someone, oh, you have a big nose, or oh, you have fat thighs, I can pretty much tell you that during that stage of their life, they will always remember that. And I'm sure anyone listening here knows that when you look inward or when you're just going about your life, you can see situations that trigger that old earlier response, like that will make you say, oh, I don't know how to do math, or I'm stupid, I'm not good enough, I'm less than. One of the things that I collected in my childhood was, I can work my butt off my entire life. This was what I collected. I can do all this stuff, but I will never be like those little girls who have that princess bedroom. So I can get right up to the door of that bedroom, but it'll never be mine. And I have watched. Now, I didn't know that. I collected that belief system when I was little, but it makes perfect sense that I did, because I grew up in a very chaotic, physically messy house. And now I've spent my life having to have beautiful, clean spaces. That's what in mental health, we call it undoing, where it's like a pendulum swing. Like I can't have anything that's messy around me or I feel crazy. That is part of what happens to us, or what we have to understand about ourselves and then utilize that. We want to take the greatness from it and also take the dysfunction from it as well. So the dysfunctional part, the great part could be, hey, I like to keep a nice house. I like things to be clean. And the dysfunctional part could be whenever I see mess, I could feel that. And that's stress. And that's saying that, oh, the way things are, it is not good in my world. And we want to not ever be in that state. We want to stop. So that's an external event that then we go inside and we say, okay, I'm having a reaction to that. Instead of blaming, screaming, or whatever to whoever could have created a mess or whatever it is, I'm going to stop. I'm going to breathe. And I'm going to go inward. I'm going to ask myself, what is it about that situation? What is it about that messy counter that I am having such a difficult time with? Instead of blaming someone else and saying, oh, it's just right to have a clean counter. No, maybe it is. Maybe in your world it is. But, being so self-righteous never gets us really anywhere. And what we really need most is very, very harmonious and good relationships. That's a very important part of our life. So we don't want to isolate others because of something that's happening inside of us. Most people are tinkering around outside, blaming others, having difficulties, conflictual interactions in order to fix a feeling that is inside of them and can only be resolved internally. Because if I'm always trying to keep the surfaces clean, surfaces get dirty. We live on an earth that can get messy at times. So do I want to always be running on that wheel to make things better and always running one step ahead of my fear of a messy home that comes with the chaos of the childhood and comes with what also was connected to having a messy home, shame, neglect, some abuse. So we want to understand. So when I go inward, I ask the question, hey, Alison, as a kind friend, as a wise observer, you're having a strong reaction to crumbs on the counter, whatever it is. What is it about that? And then I can answer very easily because I want to be awake and aware in the now without any judgment and in a state of peace. If you can just keep those things in mind, use that as a mantra and ask yourself the question, wise questions. Honey, Alison, what is it about this mess? What is it about that person that has such an impact on you? Let's take your power back. Let's go inward and let's fix it on the inside so it doesn't have as much of a power on the outside. So what I would do is I would then say, wow, that, just brings up shame for me. Understand the feeling it's igniting. And instead of blaming someone else for it or making someone else clean up your shame, you go inward and you say, you know what, that shame connected to all that mess that was in my home. And it's still alive in me for some reason whenever I see that. So then you ask questions like, oh, do I want to continue to believe that I'm a shameful person? If my home isn't, or wherever I am, isn't perfectly ordered, does that mean that the world is not safe? Does that mean that there's something to be anxious about? And when you have an adult conversation with the younger part of you, you will find some very beautiful relationships between you and all those parts of you. And you can help that part of you see things differently. You can take those cognitions and you can reframe them and create a new belief system. Hey, guys, how are you? I want to just give a shameless plug of my book. I would really want people to have a good look at my book and to understand what it really is. I used to be ashamed to plug my book. And then I realized, how is that right to keep the information, the 30 years of experience that I have, the 8 years of education, the trauma that I grew out of and learned how to manage and how to manage emotion, all the training I've had in neuroscience and quantum physics. How can I keep that from the public? So it's not, I used to think it was like something I should, be humble about, but being humble is silly when you're keeping things away from people that they need. So what I want to tell you about my book, and I hope that you do get it because I think it will really help you. I've gotten a lot of tremendous feedback about my book and that it's really, really of great value to a lot of people. And what it is, it's an interactive read. And there's inside of it, there's journal entries. So as I'm teaching and going through the book and teaching you how to create the life you want by understanding how you're wired, how your thoughts, feelings, how your words, how thoughts are things, and the neuroscience behind it, and how we are programmed from the time we're 0 to 7 years old to live a life of mediocrity or a life of poor design because of meaning that we attached to events when we were children that just became our programming. What I want to tell you is that there is a way out, and it's a simple way. It's very simple. I believe in the simplicity and the grace in healing, and that it doesn't have to be a big work. So I would love it if you'd get my book. It's a best-selling book on Amazon, and it's my first. And I encourage you to get it. It's called The Wake Up Call, an interactive read for building the life you want. I don't think you'll be disappointed. Thanks so much for being on the show, and let's get back to it. The truth is that that's something that I don't like, but it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with me. It doesn't mean that I'm living in a shameful home. It doesn't mean that crisis is around the corner. You look around, you breathe. You want to regulate your nervous system. And we can talk more about that in another podcast, but there's so many things you can do with breathing and with visualizing. And one of the things I did, and I'm going to just close with this, is that I decided to do a visualization and I went back into my childhood home. I actually do this with people. I take them on a meditation. I take them back into their childhood home, and we do all these different things. But one of the things that I did is I went around the entire house, and with my mind, I magically renovated it. I cleaned it up. I made it into a beautiful space. I gave myself a beautiful childhood bedroom, and I created something internally inside of me that I associated with what matches me as a person today. What let me take, and then going into that little girl, what I did with her is I walked her around. I said, what would you like to do here? And I reparented her. I loved her. I allowed her shame to kick up and say, for her to be like, this is so bad. Look how ugly this is. And I would say, well, let's make it as beautiful as you. Let's make it as, let's let this home match who you really are. And how would you want it to be? And there are so many different things that we can do internally. I can tell you, any time spent trying to change another person, fix another person, assess another person, judge, blame another person, it's all fear. That time can be so much better spent with the wise connection between you and yourself, your inner world. In the beginning, what you might find is that there's this conflictual experience because you may have had to leave that part of yourself that you were ashamed of. Like I used to look at myself as a little girl as like dirty and like, she was a mess. And the thing is that, so I needed to not lie about that. A lot of like therapists might tell you, oh, just love her. Well, you don't just bypass a feeling that you already have by covering it over with something that's not true. So I want to just encourage people, if you are working on yourself, don't just magically become the beautiful friend or parent to that inner world, that child inside of you, unless you actually feel it. What you can do with, just like with any relationship, is give that part of you an opportunity, like the little girl, to say, you left me. How come you treat me so badly? And then this other part of you, the adult part, to say, you know what, I'm ashamed of you. You're dirty, you're messy, you're sloppy. And then the little girl to grieve that, and then to develop a connection between the two of you that is an integrated part of you. Because the inner parts of ourselves that haven't emotionally developed are the reasons why we cannot emotionally regulate. So in order to emotionally regulate, we need to develop emotionally in those different pockets of energy, or the inner child, or whatever we want to call it, neurological wiring. There's all different words for it. It's all the same thing. What we want to do is rewire, reframe, reparent, whatever it is that we need to do in order to restructure that part of ourselves. The only context that a child can develop in, emotionally develop in, is the context of love and acceptance. So as a parent, I swoop all the way back to the beginning of this podcast. We want to connect in authenticity, without reacting, without judging, without immediately fixing, correcting, teaching. First, we just embrace. We sit in the mess with the child and we let them talk. Then we also can correct your children. But the first thing to do, if you ever have a behavior with your child that isn't something you want, the number one key component that is missed is you want to go right to reconnecting. I'm not telling you to reinforce bad behavior by loving on them and, oh, you're wonderful. No, I'm telling you to go in as a real human being with authenticity, maybe get to their eye level and ask them what's happening without reaction. What's going on? This doesn't seem like you. What's happening that you're behaving in this way is what's doing, without judging, without, language that feels judgmental. And, I'm going to, you guys can please, and if you would, like, subscribe, have a conversation with me through messaging, through Instagram on Alison Answers or Lager Counseling Services, or on Facebook, TikTok, I'm everywhere. But what I ask that you do, if you have something you want me to talk about on the podcast or to do, a video on, just leave it in the comments. And I would be more than happy to do that. I would love to have more of you guys interacting with me so I know that I'm on track, that I'm giving you what's best for you. Okay. So if you would do that, that would be of great, great help to me. And also, could you please subscribe to my YouTube channel? Because I have a very wide audience of people who listen to my podcast, but my subscribers are very low. So if you could do me that favor, I also can give you more content. I can do more stuff on YouTube. I do not ever monetize my podcast or any of my social media. So basically, the way that you could just pay me, which I don't even want you to pay me, is just share anything I have, because I want to be able to have as much of an impact on as many people as I can, because I'd like to add value and make a difference on this earth. Okay, so thank you, and I will see you next time. Guys, thank you so much for listening to the show. I just want to say to you that we are all together a part of the Mission Awake, a mission that's going to stop the mediocrity that's plaguing all of us. So if you got something here today, I ask that you would be a part of this mission and you'd share it with whoever you can. Take a screenshot of the show and share it on your Instagram. If you are looking for me, you can find me on social media platform Instagram, Alison Answers, or Lager Counseling Services. And give us a review and subscribe, if you could, to YouTube, Alison Answers. That's where you're going to get a lot of content. I drop stuff every day, goofy stuff, all different kinds of stuff. 5-minute videos that just get you moving in your day. Have a great week. See you next time.